out there called Hawaiian Antiquities, translated by Nathaniel B. Emerson, and also lots of footnotes or endnotes that have been added by both Emerson and W.D. Alexander. So you don't really know who or where any of the information comes from. You don't know who's actually um, inserting things that shouldn't be there. But what you do see is when David Malo talks about it, Kepolino talks about it, Kelo Kamakau talks about it, and also John Papai'i, and finally Samuel M. Kamakau. Before they launch into the talk about the makahiki, they actually talk about the makahiki, which is or so I should say makahiki small m, which is the actual lunar calendar for the year. And then the makahiki with the big M, which is the festival, is talking about more about the rituals and ceremonies. So they felt that it was important for all of us to understand the calculations of our Hawaiian lunar calendar in order to understand the makahiki and all of the rituals that come with it too as well. So that's kind of a really important thing. That's out there, to making that connection that the akua called Lonoika Makahiki is not just a person or many persons, but also this idea of Lono being in charge of the actual year itself. Okay, so I thought I'd start with that. When you go into all of their writings, though, they break down all of the different rituals by lunar phase. Okay, so by lunar phase. And so this right here that you see, this wheel here that you see, are the 12 lunar months, whereas this slide previously was about the 30 lunar phases that each month has. I do have to say that just because there are 30 phases does not mean that they correlate with a 24-hour period. Okay, moon phases do not sit in the same phase for 24 hours. They're constantly changing out. Okay, so it's likely that one day you'll have Hilo and Hoaka within the 24-hour period. Then the next day it'll be Hoaka and Kukahi. And then the next day it'll be Kukahi Kulua. And then the next day it'll be Kulua Kukolu. So it's kind of constantly having two phases within the 24-hour period. So I just wanted to make that clear. That they don't coincide with the actual Gregorian calendar, the Western calendar. These are two separate systems, okay? So I just wanted to make that clear. Coming back to this circle here, we see the 12 Malama, or the 12 Hawaiian lunar months that correlate with each of those 30 phases. They sit within each of these Malama, each of these lunar months, okay? They're in a circle because I wanted to show or portray that it's actually a cycle, and it constantly revolves around this this circle as it moves from one lunar month to the next. So you can see that half of the lunar months, the 6 lunar months, sit in typically when the wet seasons are occurring, called Kau Ho'oilo, which are kind of correlates to our winter months. And then 6 of the lunar months, the lunar Malama, actually sit in Kauvela, which are our dry months, okay? Our months where we can expect it to be a little calmer, calmer seas, calmer up on the mountaintops too as well. And so this is a time when people are actually very busy fishing, farming, gathering resources, collecting things so that they can prepare for the winter months, which are not very abundant at that time because it rains so much. Okay, so each of these Malama, as you can see in each of the wedges, they all have a star. And the reason why that's there is because each of those lunar months themselves are a star name. Okay, so if you were to go into the Kumulipo and look into the our Hawaiian cosmogonic chant in Va Umikumaha, the 14th chapter, I guess, if you will, you will find that they mention all of these stars, all of these lunar months in the middle of part of that chapter. So So this tells us that each of these stars are in the sky and are the guardians of a particular lunar month or of the 30 phases. So that's kind of important. What's really important here is for us to start off in the lunar month of Ikua. Okay, as you guys can see that on the sort of the middle part, middle lower half of the circle there. So Ikua is, you see there's a black flag there. That is a representation of the old flag that was out earlier and now is old, called a velu. And when that happens, that says that it's time for coup, and the strict governance that usually occurs during the 6 months, 6 months of the year is going to now rest. It's a rest period. And Ikua is when the first kuapola occurs, okay? The second kuapola happens in Velehu, and then there is a third kuapola that happens in Kaelo. Okay, so that's what you see here. So you see Ikua, Velehu, and then it jumps over Makali'i and then Kaelo. So these are kind of the 4 months when we can expect the Makahiki season. Sorry, my dogs. Okay, so what I do want to talk about really quickly is this idea of a point of view, the point of view. And what is important about that is the Hawaiian lunar calendar is very site specific, meaning that the way that the year is calculated has to do with where you are located on the actual archipelago, or where it is that you are located on the planet too, as well. So, so knowing this, we can say that our calendars are very different from one place to the next. Okay, our calendars differ from one location to the next. So I'm saying that to you because Kuapola is one of those times when you're able to recalibrate your calendar in a way that you can see everything, in a way that you can see everything in the sky that matters to you, that matters to your community. So Kuapola is the one and only time when all 12 of these stars that I was talking about earlier are up in the sky, or at least their partner stars are up in the sky, so that you know those stars that rule over each of these lunar malama, or over each of these malama, are in the sky at the time that the first kuapola occurs. Okay, so this is why it's important to know your point of view and why you're looking for certain star constellations in the sky. This helps you to recalibrate your calendar. So one of the most important things about the kuapola ritual is to recalibrate your calendar for the year. Okay, and this is done from a place called a panana. So let's all say panana. Fantastic. Panana, awesome. It means it's a place in which you stand and make your observations from. So it's a platform that you that you make your observations from. So yeah, it's a very stating the obvious about what its function is. This right here is a photo of a site that is up on Mauna Loa on Hawaii Island. And let me tell you, this is not an unusual site. There are several throughout the islands that are like this. And that is actually what their functions are. The function is to correlate the stars that are important in the sky at the time that the sun is either setting or rising. Just depends on where your point of view is. So if I was on the east side or the north side of the island, I'm really more concerned about things that are rising as opposed to things that are setting, because on all of the islands, all of them, every single one of them, if I'm on the east side of the island, I really cannot see anything setting into the west because there's a mountain in the way. No matter what island you're on, there's a mountain on the way. Unless I'm on the top of the island, then perhaps I could see things also rising and setting at the same time. But other than that, it's really got to do with where your view is. If I'm on the west side of the island, the southwest or the west side of the island, I might be a little more concerned with things that are setting into the western horizon. So I cannot see things rising directly out of the horizon in the east, but I can see it once it clears the mountains that are in the way, right? And again, unless I'm on the top of the island, it is nearly impossible to see Makali'i rising in the east at the same time that the sun is setting in the west here on the Hawaiian Islands. Okay, that's really important to state because that's different from those who are down in Tahiti or in other islands that are much shorter and much lower. Okay, so this is really important because those five gentlemen that I mentioned earlier that talked about the makahiki never ever say that makahiki starts at the exact time that the sun is rising in the east at the same time that the sun is setting in the west. So I'm not quite sure where we got that information from originally, but it's not actually a true statement. So anyway, what's important though is understanding stars. Okay, understanding stars, understanding what they correlate to, which is why you would go back to this idea of a panana. The stars, the sun, and the moon are constantly rising and setting all the time. But what makes it special is when the sun and a star correlation either rises or sets together and then is marked off of a site. Okay. So you're standing on a place which you will always go back to consistently. And you will always observe either the rising of the sun at the same time that a star is rising or at the same time that the star is setting. Okay, so there's always got to be what is called a heliacal correlation or a conjunction. So the sun determines what the lunar month's name is going to be. And then the site that you're standing on also determines what the name is going to be for your specific place. So when people say, oh, there's a big difference between the Pomahina, the moon phases from one island to the next, that's actually not true. Okay, that's not true at all. That's not a true statement. But you can say that for the lunar months because it all has to do with what your point of view is. What do you see from your site? And how are you correlating it? Is it while the sun is rising or while the sun is setting? Okay, so and yeah, so that's important for the stars. So now I'm going to be talking. So the reason why I bring all of that up is just like those kupuna who wrote about those things in the newspapers. It really takes someone's observations for a very long time or somebody who's been actually learning with someone who's observed the stars throughout a lifetime, observed the sun throughout a lifetime, observed the moons throughout a lifetime, to be able to know how to correlate and how to calculate a calendar. Okay, so it takes a while. Anybody can do it. And this is my encouragement to each and every one of you to create your own panana, your own sacred space, your own place of observation to begin to make those correlations between stars that are rising or when the sun is rising, where is it located? When it's setting, where is it located? And what are the star constellations that are up at that same time? Okay, so that's me. So all of that is all part of the Kuapola ceremony and Kuapola ritual. Okay, so there's a picture of these coconuts here for a reason. This is because the Kuapola ceremony also has to do with feeding the stars. It's important to feed the stars in the Hawaiian thinking because it's almost like you're making a promise with the stars. If I feed you coconuts and a little bit of pig and we have a Ava ceremony together, then you are going to, if I feed you this night when you're all up there in the sky, then in the year, as you're up in the sky guiding over your particular malama, your particular month, then you will remember that I fed you, so you will assure that I'm fed too as well. So it's this idea of collective abundance, iola oi, iola awe. If you are well, if you thrive, then I thrive too. So that's part of what the Kuapola ceremony is all about. When we say feeding the stars, it's a metaphorical feeding, although we do physically feed the stars too as well. During the Kuapola ceremony in Ikua, which correlates with the lunar month of October, this is the time when intentions are set for the year. Now, there, like I was saying, the Kuapola is done 3 times out of the year. On the first Kuapola is only really done between the Kahuna Nui, the Kahuna or the advisor, the main advisor for the chief, and the Ali'i Nui, so the main chief. So it's just between those two individuals. And then maybe they have some people around them that are in charge of different parts of the ritual. But it's really about them setting the intentions for the chief for the year. So they decide. So the chief might say, okay, this is the year that I want to build a large house structure for my wife. And so I'm going to do that. And I'm building this large structure for my wife because I intend to have children this year. I intend to start my family this year. So that's part of the intentions that is set for the year. Now, there's probably more intentions that are set too as well, but the ali'i will make the statement. The chief will make the statement that this is what's going to happen. This is what I hope to do this year and what I want to accomplish this year. So then what happens at that time is that the the kahuna nui will then read the omens as they observe Makali'i rising. So the actual ritual itself happens after the sun sets in the west. It goes below the horizon. And everyone turns their attention towards the east while they're sitting on their mats and while they're on a lua kiniheo and they observe, they wait for the appearance of Pleiades, Makali'i, which is the name of Makali'i, the Pleiades, the 7 sisters. And so it is upon that evening that after the sun is set, everyone waits for a little while and a ritual occurs, which I'm going to be talking about in a little bit. After the rituals occur, then everyone sits and then the kahuna will wait for Makali'i to appear. And based on the way the characteristics, whether the stars are flashing, whether the star is solid, or whether some are flashing like a Christmas tree, whether some of them are clear or are cloudy or aren't very visible. Even colors matter. If you see colors on certain stars, the kahuna will go and say, oh, okay, I just read the omens in Makali'i and the characteristics. And upon reading those different omens, we'll advise the ali'i nui, will advise the chief on the best options to that is, that can be fulfilled for the upcoming years. So maybe the kahuna will say, oh, no, this is not the year for making babies. Based on the characteristics of the makali'i, the kahuna nui might advise, okay, so yeah, you might want to let's build a big heiau instead, because a lua kini heiau, because we should prepare for the war. Our neighbors are going to come and try and get, I don't know, all of our fish or something like that. So the kahuna will advise the ali'i nui on the best options to fulfill the upcoming year, and they'll confer back and forth between each other, deciding how they're going to move forward so that they are, whatever it is that they want will be fulfilled and they'll succeed. The ali'i nui will succeed. Okay, and then finally, so that happens on the first night, that ikua, on the night of hua, on the pomahina, on the lunar phase of hua, is when this event occurs. Okay, so after that happens and they confer with one another, they decide whether, okay, yeah, this is good, oh no, this is bad, okay, let's do this, let's do that. Everybody goes back home and everybody waits for another month. So nothing really happens during that time. there's nothing really going on. There's no rituals. There's no games going on. There's nothing really happening at that time. It's not until the lunar month of Velehu, which we are currently in, which kind of correlates with November, when the second Kuapola occurs. So they wait again for the Hua moon phase, which is coming up, gang, on Thanksgiving evening of this year, the second Kuapola. And at the second Kuapola is not just for the Kahuna Nui or the Ali'i Nui. This is for everybody. And what's important about the makahiki is that it is the one and only ritual where everyone in the community is responsible to participate. Everybody must participate in the makahiki celebration. And so at the second kuapola, on the lunar month of Velehu, on the night of Po Hua, is when whatever it was the Ali'i Nui and Kahuna Nui agreed upon on the first kuapola is then disseminated out to the greater community. And so the dissemination of information happens at the second kuapola. So at the second kuapola is where everybody will know, okay, gang, we're going to go to war this year. So we're going to build Luakini. And so this family, I want you in charge of collecting rocks. This family, I want you to increase the amounts of taro and sweet potato that you're growing so that we can feed our warriors. This family is in charge of making enough kapa. This family is in charge of making enough spears and pahoa or whatever it is. So everybody knows what their responsibility is for that year based on what information is disseminated at this second kuapola. And so here is a chant that is actually part of the ceremony, of the kuapola ceremony. It addresses Lonoika Makahiki, and Lonoika Makahiki is an akua, or a natural process of keeping track of time or keeping track of the makahiki. It also happens to be, there were several Lonoika Makahiki in genealogies too as well, a total of 5 to be exact, that have been recorded. There's probably more, but these I know of 5 for sure. And so the name also is genealogically connected to this time of the makahiki, is also genealogically connected to this creation and recalibration of time too as well. And so this is a chant that happens on the evening of the kuapola. And um, so let me go back first to the very first ritual that happens. Very first ritual that happens after the sun sets, that's where we were. Um, there are 2 gentlemen who are chosen from the community or from the regime of the Ali'i Nui, to whom their responsibility is to smash coconuts. That's one of their jobs. They smash coconuts. And when I say that, they choose, both of them have to choose 2 young coconuts. They're called New Hiva. And this is something new about New Hiva. Most people translate the word New Hiva to mean black coconut, but actually, New Hiva also means green coconut. So you can look in the Hawaiian language dictionary to see that's what it says. The ritual of 2 gentlemen come, they get onto the Luakini Heao with the Lono Makua, which is that picture that you see here on the left of the staff with the flowing white kapa, and the 2 birds, which are kaupu birds, and also bedecked with ferns and fern leis and those kinds of things. So I have to say thank you to Umikai for loaning me this photo of their makahiki akualoa, their staff here. So the akualoa comes, that's what the name of this staff is. It's there on the Luakini Heiau. The 2 gentlemen with the 2 coconuts come. And then to start the ceremony, they are the ones who start the ceremony. There's a few words that they say. They say, well, yeah, they go through a ritual chant. And at the end of the chant, the two of them smash the two coconuts together. And so what happens is, if it's a young coconut and they smash the coconuts properly, it shatters into many pieces, water flies everywhere, parts of the coconut fly everywhere, and then the two halves of the shell, coconut shells, are placed onto the kuahu, or onto the platform where offerings are left. So what you'll have are four pieces of coconut that are up, and very bright under the light of the moon. It's very lovely for this ceremony to happen. And yeah, so you have to, and these two guys have to be the best coconut smashers ever. Like, they practice all year round to smash the coconuts. They have to smash it right the first time. And so I'm sure that it was a prestigious actual job to do, or not job, but responsibility, to make sure that the coconuts are smashed and then are offered to the stars that happen to be up in the sky. Okay, so then the second chant that happens follows after the smashing of the coconut. The A little bit of pork is added. So let me just say quickly why that's important. Firstly, the coconut is a representation of the of one of the gods named Ku, and that particular time when Ku is in governance is over. So by smashing the coconut, that's a symbolic way of ending Ku's time. And then feeding the stars pig is a way to say that it is now the time of Lono, and it is the governance that belongs to the maintenance of what each community has, the maintenance of, and then the collection of the tribute that is owed to the Ali'inui, which uh, um is called taxes now, but or was translated as taxes in some of the translations, but actually tax is not really a good way to describe the tribute. The better way to describe it is, everyone is genealogically responsible for the collective abundance of their community. We're born into it. Hawaiians are born into it, which means you learn right away about your importance in your community, how your contribution is important. And so this idea of collective abundance is brought through during the makahiki, during the auhau, which is this the ritual of bringing what was asked of you, and so or asked of your family, to assure that the community will thrive. And so that's one of the important parts about the kuapola ritual, anyway, and also of the auhau. But back to this second ceremony. So a little bit of pork is given, and then this chant here is what is spoken. And so I'll say it really quickly. It goes, Ela ako hanai, hanai po hanai au. Ya hiki uli uli, ya hiki mele mele, ya hiki ka elo, ya hiki ka ulua. Ya hiki nana, ya hiki velo, ya hiki iki iki, ya hiki ka ona. Ya hiki hina ya ele ele, ya hiki hili na ehu, ya hiki hili na ma. Ya hiki ikua, ya hiki velehu, ya hiki makali I ola. And then one person says, "E wahi kaniuo kuapola," and everybody says, "Wa wahia." And one person says, "E wahi kaniuo kuapola," and everybody responds, "Wa wahia." The one person says, "E wahi kaniuo kuapola," and everybody responds, "Ua wa wahia." E hiki mai o lono. Okay, so the reason why those letters there in red are marked is because they should look familiar. They should look like that picture of the malama that you saw in a circle, because each of these are the lunar months and also the stars that are in the sky during the kuapola ceremony. Okay, so all of them are in the sky. The one and only time that all of those important stars are up there for the calendar during the Kuapala ritual and ceremony. Okay.
Auntie Kalea, you have a question on that slide? It's
Okay.
relevant to that slide.
Okay.
Why are kaupu birds hung from the staff? Are they caught and killed for this ceremony? And what is
Yeah.
the
Thank you. Okay.
done
Um,
afterwards
okay.
with the
Okay.
lono over there?
Okay. I didn't hear most of that question, Katie, but I think I have an idea what you were saying or what you were asking, and then you could just re-ask again if I don't hit the nail on the head. But what you see there on the left-hand corner is a picture of the Makahiki staff called the Akualoa, called Lono Makua. The word Makua means, it doesn't mean parent, as some people translate it to. It can mean that though. So yeah, let me say that it can mean that, but it also means to lower the clouds, and that's actually what's happening here too. And thank you for asking that question because I totally forgot to say that. One of the functions of Lono is to create clouds and to bring rain. And in a Hawaiian thinking, you can avoid pestilence and famine and problems if you have a good year of rain and storms like currently Hawaii Island is having right now, and I think other islands on the archipelago is having. We love storms, we need storms. So makua actually means to lower the clouds. And those two birds that you see there are called kaupu. They're the black albatross. There is some discussion about it in some of the old literature that talks about kaupu being the white um, albatross too, which is also called a moli. But I have been on the Midway Island and have seen albino black um, albatross birds, and it almost makes me think that that's what they may have been looking for at that time. But anyway, back to why those are there. These two birds usually fly out, or these particular birds fly out in the sky and out into the deep ocean and rarely come in to nest on the islands until they have to have babies, when they have to when they go to nest for babies, to lay their eggs and those kinds of things. That's when they come into shore. They're the only birds that actually fly really, really high up into the sky, besides the frigate birds and the which are the booby birds, which can also fly high. But the albatross themselves, to a Hawaiian eye that you can see, are up in the clouds. And so the idea is to have these clouds sort of chum the rain clouds to come lower, to lower those clouds, lower those mantles down for rain. I think part of the question here was, were those birds specifically killed for this ceremony? Probably traditionally, yes. The answer was yes, because they probably had lots and lots of them at one time. Those particular kaupu birds that you see here were collected on the northwest Hawaiian Islands. They were already dead, and so they went and got permits to actually acquire them. Um, they are um, they are what do you call that when you go to a taxidermist? They're preserved so that they can be used over and over again. And in fact, traditionally, that's what they did. Sometimes they weren't able to get full birds, so they would just get feathers and then create feather leis with them. But right now, because these are endangered birds, we're not allowed to collect feathers without actually getting a permit. So anyway, those will probably be folded up and preserved and then brought out again um, every year. Is it's They're used over and over again. And so, Katie, did I answer that question to all of it?
Yeah, yeah, you answered all of that. Thank you so much.
Okie
Thank
dokie.
you.
Yep, you're welcome. Okay, so here we are with the cracking of the coconuts. This is what it looks like. The cracker, the smasher, has to be able to hold the coconut without leaving his fingers, and or yeah, his fingers where they'll get smashed. And the cracker of the coconut has to be able to smash both of those coconuts evenly. You can't have one hand stronger than the other. It's quite a talent. To you actually have to practice and to train to do it right. Okay, so that's what it looks like when you're smashing the coconuts. And this is a photo on the lower part of it's intentionally dark and it's intentionally fuzzy. Not that I take bad photos, but because it is of Hikiau Heiau at the time that we're waiting for the Makali'i stars to rise. So as you can see, we're sitting here in the dark under the light of the moon. It's actually a very wonderful ceremony where everybody can talk about what their intentions are for the year. And what I want to say is, I see a lot of anthropologists who base their work on secondary resources, and secondary resources means that they waited for the translations of the Hawaiian into English and then based their theories on that secondary information, which wasn't even properly translated. And so in 2017, when we went to go and see if you could actually see Makali'i from Hikiauheo at the same time that the sun was setting in the west, we realized quickly that you cannot. There's just no way. And it wasn't until reading John Papai'i's newspaper article where he describes both he and Kelo Kamakau describe how you sit on the heiau and you wait until your eyes are at an angle, at a 20-degree angle, before you see Makali'i rising in the east. And so this is my hope that people will go to read the primary resources, which are the actual handwritten notes by David Malo, or actually the Hawaiian that was written and not translated by people who can't even translate Hawaiian properly, or just made things up when they decided that they didn't know what was happening, which is the case for a lot of those translations. Anyway, read the original. And then when you see that, you will see that our ancestors, our kupuna, these folks who wanted to transfer this knowledge to us, made it a point to actually give us the information we need to see. The key, though, is learning the Hawaiian language. So this is my push towards folks to go and learn Hawaiian and learn it well. Okay. Anyway, so yep. And finally, this is the last kuapola from Ke'ekuheau in Kona, where you can see Makali'i rising there. If you don't know where Makali'i is, it's that star cluster that you see peeking over, the very bright star constellation that you see peeking over the clouds there. So this is how large Makali'i is for just a brief moment when your eyes are 20 degrees above the horizon. And after 20 degrees, then it's too late. You can't make your observations or projections for the year, so you have to get it before that happens. And so yeah, anyway, so you look for cloudiness, clarity, color, activity, whether it's blinking, flashing, strobing, or just calm and strong throughout its appearance, to make your decisions for the rest of the year, to grab that as an omen to prepare for the next year. Okay, so with my last few minutes that I have here, I wanted to teach folks how to do this chant. And so this is a traditional makahiki chant that you can find in Kepalino. Actually, it's part of a very long chant called Alalalahe, and it's Kepalino who actually records it, and then you can see that it's repeated again and again in different places. And so just this section alone is the section that I will teach you all, and it has to do with asking for, not really asking, Hawaiians don't really ask in the old days. Pre-missionary contact, we didn't ask, we said that this was going to happen, and that's how we manifested things, is we said it already happened. So by asking, we're sort of not really asking, we're sort of stating a fact that it already happened, which means it will happen in the Hawaiian thought. Okay, so This is called a kau kau aloha no e lono. And I think I have the translations on the next slide. Maybe I don't. Nope, I don't. I lie. Oh, wait, here it is. Oh, I do. I do. Okay. Yep. Let me keep playing this. So a kau kau aloha no e lono has to do with this is me, one, and you all. So you guys are gonna respond. I'll do both parts though, because I cannot hear you responding. So I'm just gonna do. You guys will do both if you want to. It's up to you. No, no pressure. Much aloha. Yeah, radical aloha. Do as you do in whatever it is you do. Okay, so a kau kau aloha no e lono means to. I want to have this intimate relationship with Lono, and the intimate relationship I want to have in the night and in the day has to do with storms that Lono will bring. Okay, so that's kind of what it's saying in a paraphrase. So I'll say one, e kau kau aloha no e Lono, and then all E lono i ka po, e lono i ke ao. So let me have this relationship with you. That's what I'm asking. And you guys are going to say, e lono i ka po, lono who is in the dark, and lono who is in the light, in the daytime. So nighttime, daytime, all those lonos, we want all of them to come. Then I say, e lono i ka hikili, i ka wila, i ka ualoku, i ka ua pakaku. And so these are all the forms in which we can expect to see Lono during the season of the makahiki. We can see him in the natural process of hekili, which is thunder, or that's the another thing that Lono means. It means sound and vibration. And so Hekili is another form of Lono, which is, thunder. Ikawila, you got to have light, right? Lightning. So that's another form that we can expect to see. A natural process we can expect to see during the Makahiki season. Ikawaloku, heavy rains are a form or a characteristic of Lono during the Makahiki season. And we just had a full day and a half of Ualoku here in Hilo, these last day and a half. Ika ua pakaku, and ua pakaku are thick raindrops, were the kinds that look like that you can actually see and that you can actually hear. They really hit really hard when they hit your window screen while you're driving your car. Big drops where they look like huge fat caterpillars. That's what a pakaku is. Okay, so I'll say that. E lono i ka hikili, i ka wila, i ka ua loku, i ka ua pakaku. And then you guys are going to say, e ua mai e lono. So lono, make it rain. That's what we're saying. Now, the next bunch of rains, types of rain that you're going to hear, um, we all experience this kind of rain wherever it is we are on this planet. And so we can have ownership to it because it's part of our environment. And so here we are. It goes Ika Uahea, and Uahea is a misty rain. Ikaua ililani. And ililani is that type of rain that appears even though the sun is out, and it's like a really heavy rain that'll just pour at one time, but the sun is out and you're not quite sure where it's coming from because the clouds are kind of far away. That's what ua ililani is. Uh, Ika ua lelehune. Ua lelehune is fine, 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 misty rain. It's so fine that only the hairs on your arm actually collects the drops of the rain. It's so fine. So ika ua lelehune, lelehuna, and ika opua. Ika opua means clouds, in the clouds. Okay. So that's what you'll say. Oh no, that's what I'll say. And then you all are gonna respond, e hua mai e lono. And hua can mean to fruit or to produce. Hua also means let it happen. It's gonna happen, lono. You're gonna make it happen, right? So that's what we're saying there. And then I say ika ua o ili maka akua ne la, which means at this the onset and the arrival of this natural process, this lono, as he's coming with all of these storms and these rains. And then you guys are all going to say, e hiki mai e lono. E lono e ola. So when rain comes, um, we can be assured that the crops will grow. We can be assured that the forest will be happy, that the environment will be healthy because ue kalani ola kahonua. When the skies and the atmosphere cries, then we will have life on the planet. So that's basically what this chant is saying. So let's practice, okay? A kau kau aloha no e lono, and then you guys are gonna say e lono I ka po, e lono I ke ao, and then I'm gonna say e lono I ka hikili, ka wila, I ka ua loku, I ka ua pakaku, and then you guys are gonna say e ua mai e lono, and then I'm going to say I ka ua hea, I ka ua ililani, I ka ua lele huna, I ka opua, and then you guys are gonna say e hua mai e lono, and then I'll say I ka ua o ili maka akua ne la, and then you guys are gonna say e hiki mai e lono e ola. Okay, like that. All right, so let's try. So I'll do both sides. You guys can do both sides too if you want to. Okay, so here we go. Ready and e kau kau aloha no e lono, and you're gonna say e lono I ka po, e lono I ke ao, e lono I ka he kili, I ka wila, I ka ua loku, I ka ua pakaku, and you guys say e ua mai e lono, I ka ua hea, I ka ua ililani, I ka ua lele huna, I ka opua, and you guys say e hua mai e lono, I ka ua o ili maka akua ne la, and then you guys say e hiki mai e lono e ola. Okay, so like that. So let's do it for real. Okay, let's do it for real so we can get a nice zing zing going. Ready and e kau kau aloha no e lono I ka po, e lono I ke ao, e lono I ka hikili, I ka wila, I ka ua loku, I ka ua pakaku, e ua mai e lono, I ka ua hea, I ka ua ililani, I ka ua lele huna, I ka opua, e hua mai e lono, I ka ua o ili maka kua ne la, e hiki mai e lono e ola. And then if you feel really good with a really nice zing zing, you can clap twice. Okay, so here's the translations. If you need the translations, for those of you who are screenshotting every single thing, this is for you all. Okay, so this is your translation. Okay, well, I think that's pretty much my talk. So let me quickly go through some of the characteristics and expectations of the Makahiki season, which are all kino lao, called kino lao of Lono. So we can expect single-sided rainbows or all types of rainbows, but especially single-sided rainbows because movement is happening. And usually these rainbows move really quickly. We can expect storms. If we see storms, then we know we're gonna have wind, we're gonna have rain, really heavy rain. We'll have thunder, we'll have lightning, we'll have snow. And when that occurs, we'll have flash flooding, which is also a kinolao of Lono. Landslides will also happen. Surf will also come through to Hawaii. We can expect huge earthquakes to occur, or at least very active geological activity where there's a lot of rumbling going on. We can expect volcanic activity sometimes. Mist. Let's see, what else can we expect? The arrival of whales is also a seasonal thing that we can see. Yeah, so these are just some of the things that we hope for. We like storms because when storms come, our aquifers get refilled. And if they get refilled, then we're healthy for the rest of the year. Okay, well, that's it for me. Let me see if I can finish. I'll stop sharing. And if anybody has any questions to ask, I'll take it. I'll take any questions. I think I'm done. I finished way ahead of time.
You're
Maybe I went
fine.
maybe I went too quickly. I'm not sure. But
Yeah. Thanks, Auntie Kale. You're fine. If anybody has any questions, you can type them in the chat. Till then, Kubalili had a question related to the pullet earlier.
Okay.
She said these names look like one version of the names of the lunar months, but there are 14 instead of 12? Question mark. I think that was her question. So
Okay.
while
Yes.
we're yeah, I'm gonna
Okay. So the short story of the long story, because it's a very long story. Uli Uli and Mele Mele are two stars that are up in the sky. They're called Pipilima elsewhere, although in Hawaii we have several Pipili stars. So, for example, the hook, which is called Shaula, the hook of Manaya Kalani, which I think is called Kamaka, and I'm not sure if that's a contemporary name, but they're also, those two stars are called Pipili. There are two other stars which are Alpha and Beta Centauri, and then there's also Nana Mua and Nana Hope. These are all Pipili. And also Sheridan is another star constellation called Pipili. It's a Pipili star. So these are stars that sort of indicate to us when our calendar is off track. So when I say off track, if we follow the lunar calendar in the way that the Hawaiian calendar is, we actually have 354 lunar days in a year. And so what that means is we are short by 11 days if we're matching up with the solar time. Now, here's the thing. A Hawaiian calendar doesn't just look at the moon. Our Kaulana Mahina uses the movement of the sun, where the sun is located on the horizon, and at the time that the sun is at the horizon. So it could, and I say at the horizon because I cannot say if it's the east side or the west side. It just depends on your point of view where your panana is. So you have to know your sun. You have to know your lunar calendar months, which means you have to know the stars. So how these two things correlate together, the stars, is kept together by the lunar months. So every 3 to 5 years, because we're 11 days short in the lunar month, as opposed, or the lunar year as opposed to the solar year, we get short every 3 years. We have to add a 13th lunar month. So Uli Uli and Mele Mele are my personal magical stars that I use to tell when I have to add a 13th lunar month. And I get that from the Kumulipo, and I also get it from these chants that you see, several Makahiki chants that tell you that those are the two stars. If you cannot see them, then that means the next year you're going to have to add a 13th lunar month. Joseph Moku Ohai Poi Poi writes a very long, arduous article in 1906 in the Hawaiian language newspaper called Kana'ia Puni, starts on February 4th, 1906, ends on November 21st, 1906. And in that whole section is when he's talking about the Kumulipo. He gets to the star constellations right around in October, and he explains to everybody how to recalibrate your calendar every year. So yeah, so for me, I personally use Uli Uli and Mele Mele. And actually there's a longer answer for this, but I'm just gonna stop there. It's basically telling us when to make our calculations to recalibrate the calendar. When we insert our 13th lunar month, and that just happened this past year. We did insert a 13th lunar month. For those of you, so according to my calculations, we are currently in the lunar month of Velehu. Okay, that's my long story short.
I'm sure we'll get some more questions about that tomorrow during Pule. But we
Yeah.
have another question from Liko Puha.
Okay. Hi,
Uh,
Lipo.
yeah, he says, and I'm gonna follow up with this question on this one. Oh, Lily Kala says mahalo nui.
Okay.
So Liko asks, in your experience, has there ever been a time when you were not able to view the stars due to the clouds?
Yep. Oh, you mean Makali'i? I'm
Uh,
assuming you mean on the Kuapola. I'm just gonna
I
assume
think
you
he
mean.
might be a general thing. On the Kuapola, he clarified.
Okay. Yes. Last year. And then based on what we saw on the little parts of the stars that we did see every now and again, We knew whatever was coming was going to be global. And interestingly enough, we also knew whatever was a Hawaiian practice, if you had a Hawaiian practice of some sort, yeah, then that it was going to be something that you needed to know. We also knew, based on not seeing the stars, that there would be a lot of rain and a lot of root rot that this 2020 year. And so yeah, that was kind of that's some of the things I can remember right now from 2020. But we so in 2017, we started doing the observations. 2018, we went again with a group of practitioners onto Hikiau Heiau. 2019, we invited a lot of cultural practitioners to who take care of Luakini Heiau, or sites where Luakini used to be, or have practices. So I have to shout out to all of those folks. Yeah, everybody went out to go and do observations, because the more folks who are out there who are practitioners on Heiau doing the observations can actually help us build our database, so we understand some of the things that our kupuna wrote about. Anyway, long story short, Liko, in last year was the year we saw that 2020 was going to be a global year, whatever it was, and then the pandemic happened. So I don't know if the root rot part had to do with the pandemic, or not being able to see the stars was the big sign that we were going to have a very hard year. I'm not sure. But interestingly, it has been Hawaiian things that have kept myself anyway, and some others who feel like it's what helped us through this pandemic that we're experiencing right now. But anyway, that's my long story, Liko. Thank you for asking. So yes, yes, and yes. Yeah. Mahalo for asking.
Yeah. Kanoi asks, if the first kuapola is for the li'i nui and kahuna, and the second kuapola includes the maka'ainana, who does the third kuapola involve?
Oh, great question. Yeah, mahalo for asking that. And so what I read about it is that it seems like it was only done by the upper echelons of the society, and not by everybody. And it was a way for you to honor your ali'i nui by saying thank you. And it was also a way to end your obligation to the chief and to this time of lono, and begin looking towards taking care of personal professions. I say personal professions because if you are a fisherman, then you are able to go back to fishing. If you're a farmer, then you're able to go back to farming, that kind of thing. And so it is a way to release you of your obligations to the chief, to Makahiki, to Lono, and then get back to daily activity. It happened right away. The other thing is that I didn't say is, a lot of these things that are written um, by our Hawaiian scholars don't really say that Makahiki lasts 4 months. What they say is, on this month this happens, on this month this happens. So on Ikua, this is what happens. On Velehu, this is what happens. Makali'i, everybody plays. Kaelo is when the makahiki is done, and then they go into starting to get ready for the ku season again. But on the month of Velehu, when they're going through all of the different rituals, bringing the ho'okupu, waiting for the lonomakua to arrive and that kind of thing, there's really only 4 days when war is not supposed to happen, and when kappa is not supposed to be beaten, when fighting is not allowed, when war is not allowed, when blowing the poo is not allowed, sounding the drum is not allowed. And these are the 4 days that the akualoa, or the staff, is walking, making their circuit. And so those things, because lono means sound, it means we only need lono sounds, natural sounds that have to happen, and not man-made sounds. So everything is quiet, and those are the only 4 days we're not supposed to go to war or fight. Any other time outside of that, you can go to war. So this idea that we didn't go to war for 4 months is not a real thing that our ancestors actually said. That's something that anthropologists said, and we continue to say those things, but actually that's not what our scholars said. So yeah, I don't even know if I answered your question because I went off on a tangent. Sorry about that.
The question that Konoy asked was who participates in the third
Yeah, yeah.
ceremony,
Okay,
I
I did
believe.
answer. Okay, yeah, yeah.
And then Lanakila asked on Facebook, when is the third Kuapola ceremony? I
Yeah,
feel like
in
you like kind of
Kaelo.
answered
Thank you. Yeah, it happens in the lunar month of Kaelo, and it also happens on the Po Mahina of Hua. You see, the word Hua means to manifest, yeah? Means to happen. It means to come to fruition. So you choose those nights because you want those things to happen. And so the third Kuapola has nothing to do with watching stars at all. It's more about leaving offerings or gifts, really. It's more about leaving gifts for the chiefs who are in charge of you. So sometimes it goes to the Ali'i Nui, or sometimes it goes to the Konahiki. So it happens on the same time, but the stars are no longer involved for that particular ceremony because it's not a mandatory thing. Not everybody does it. Just some people do it. And yeah, so that's my explanation to that third kuapola. It's actually called Pu'u Oke Kuapola, the whole name. Yeah. Yeah. Hope I answered. It's not as big of a
that.
deal as the other two, to tell you the truth.
I think this is a good question. Oh, there's so many questions. Okay, so I'm gonna preface this before because we're not gonna get to all the questions. Come to Kanai Night together on Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. before we have Pule, and you can come and get your answers directly from Auntie Kale. You just get that by subscribing to our e-letter. I'll redrop it in, but there's some good questions here, but okay, I'm gonna take these two guys over here. Manoa's question is, I feel like you answered this already. What were the 4 nights? I might have been late on this question, or the moons. You
Okay.
answered that, yeah, Auntie.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I
So
think you did. Okay, you can answer that then. Yeah.
okay, so the 4 nights are Ole Pau, Kaloa Kukahi, Kaloa Kulua, Kaloa Pau, and then the very next phase is Kane, which is when you're prepared for the arrival of Lonomakua in your community. So you're only worried for those 4 nights. There's like a 10-day period. There's a 10-day, we count in tens and fours, gang. That's what we count in, tens and fours. And so there's a 10-day period when you can expect. So there's a lot of gathering of the whole kupu that happened on the La'au nights. And then there's all these things that happen where you prep the place, you're trying to get it all nice. Everybody's got their nice clothes on. They all look good. Everybody's eating preserved foods. Nobody's eating fresh foods. Games are happening. We're waiting. We're playing. We're in the ocean. A lot of ocean activity is happening. A lot of hula dancing is happening. Everybody's just waiting for the akua to arrive. And then those are the phases. So from Ole Pau all the way to Kane are the 4 phases, because the next phase after Kane is Lono. And so this is when Lono will leave and will carry on to go back to wherever it is he has to go back to get put away. Yeah. Thank you for asking. If you want to
Okay, I
know
think
when
we're
that
like
is,
going over time.
yeah, go ahead. Oh yeah, we're going over time.
Go
Yeah, we
ahead, go ahead.
started kind of late. Sorry. I tried to hurry up. Yeah.
No,
Well,
you're
anyway,
fine.
if you're interested in looking where you can read that, you can read it in Fornander. This is Kilo Kamakau who's talking about that. And yeah, look for the Moko Moko stories that they talk about. And then also Malo does talk about it, but you gotta be careful. You cannot read the Malo that was printed. You gotta read the Malo that was handwritten. And I know that Dr. Kale Langlis and Dr. Kapali Lyons just published Malo's actual writings for everybody to. So this is my shout out for you to go and buy that book, because it's the original what he actually wrote, what was said that he actually wrote. So yeah, go get that book, and then you'll know exactly what they said, what he said. And Malo didn't put in any chants, or he just put in one chant, Pule Hainaki, but most of it, all the other stuff in the end notes, we have no idea where it came from, because Emerson and Alexander didn't quote their sources. I actually found some of the sources because they stole it out of Kelo Kamakau and John Papaii and never credited any of those two guys. So anyway, that's my little academic shout out there. Be careful where you
No,
get your
that's
information
good.
from.
I feel like this is kind of like a fire question.
Okay.
Kiala Fung asks, how do the Makahiki, oh, I have to do it. How do the Makahiki games play into all of this?
Yeah. Okay. So when I'm talking first, I feel like I have to make a distinction. When I'm talking about Makahiki, I'm talking about pre Aikapu, pre Ainoa. So during the Aikapu time, that's what I'm talking about. Makahiki afterwards, that happened, that got revived again and restored in the 1980s. There's nothing wrong with that Makahiki. I want to make sure people understand that. In fact, it's very important. It's what got us back to thinking about ritual and ceremony again in a public forum. I don't know why, Kiala, that popped in my head just now. I just figured I better answer that right now. Your question about the Makahiki games, there were games. Yeah, there's many ways to answer this question, because here in Hawaii, it's raining. There's nothing you can't fish or farm right now. In fact, if you were to go surfing right now, down in Honolulu on the island of on Hawaii Island in Hilo, the rivers are all flowing. All the trees are going through. We love these flash floods that come because they clean out our streams. Why am I saying that to you? Is because it's a fact. It's a fact. You cannot really play a lot of things. You can't really do a lot of things when there's rain, right? So you're kind of you're trying to get out of the way. So that's why you're not working. That's one of the reasons you want the rain to come. Games have several functions. A lot of it has to do with gambling and gambling in your life. Moko moko, the word moko moko, besides boxing, which actually is a terrible explanation of moko moko is actually mixed martial arts. In the same way that they have mixed martial arts today, it would have been the same way that moko moko was. Um, so there's boxing, there's moving, there's jumping around, there's matrix kind hanging in the sky and that kind of thing. All of that. Part of that has to do with um, well, betting has to do with that. Betting away your house, betting away different things with people. Some of it has to also do with the word mokomoko, which means it's the first when you open up a lo'i, a taro patch, and you release the water into the taro patch. That activity is actually called moko moko when you're wetting your lo'i for the first time with water. And so the fighting part is sort of instigating this idea of fruition again through the taro patches. Okay, this idea of the taro patches and the moko moko. So when that blood is released from the person in the fighting, that's sort of kind of okay, so the release of water will happen too. Why is the release of water happening? Because there's a lot of rain. So there's a lot of this metaphor that goes on if you read some of the chants that talk about that in prayers. Anyway, so that's part of it. There's gambling involved. There's this idea of wit, a lot of wit, and rhyming, puzzles, those kinds of things happen. Mind games happen too at that time. And then physical sports too happen. So some of these things are there for maintenance, the maintenance of one's mind, one's body, and then the collective mind and the collective body, because you just got disseminated the information about what you're supposed to prepare for the next year. And so you have to, you know, everybody's excited about that and they want to make sure that they fulfill their obligation. And so games, you know, you have to play as hard as you work. That's something I feel the American culture is sadly not supporting, and you know they prefer everybody working to their bones or working down the fingers to a bone. You know, instead of we should play as hard as we work too. So that's another part of this idea of the Makahiki games. Thank you for asking. I don't know if I
Some good.
answered the question properly. Yeah.
It's all
Anyway, come
good.
back on
It's all
Tuesday. Come
good.
on Tuesday.
Yeah. You come into Tuesday at 8. We have a bunch of people that come and ask all kind of questions about the pule. Um, Ali Atkins, you may have answered this, Auntie. Oh, Paul Gabriel wanted to ask for the title of the Kamakau. Was that the newspaper? Is that what you're talking about?
You mean Kelo
He wanted
Kamakau
the
or
title.
Samuel Kamakau?
I believe the last question was you were recommending.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, I was working
Fornander.
on
Yep, Fornander.
Fornander.
Yeah, so Fornander's books are called something Antiquities. Oh, shoots. Origin. No, that's the other one. Anyway, Fornander book. Right now, it just escapes me. But yeah, it's in volume 4 actually. So there's 6 volumes. So yeah, the 4th volume, and it's like the first 32 pages or something like that.
Cool. I want to do a time check with Mahina just to
Yeah,
make
because I
sure
think we're
that
going
it's
over.
all
So,
good. If we're all good, if it's all G. Okay,
okay.
cool. I guess we have like a couple more questions, if that's okay. And
Yeah,
then let
Hawaiian
me see.
antiquities and folklore.
Okay, what was that, Auntie Clay?
No, I see Nalani Blaisdell writing the name of the book over there on the side in the chat. So yeah, 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 that one. Go to that one. Yeah,
Oh,
thank you,
look at
Nalani.
that. I love it. Ali Atkins, where's that question? There it is. Ali is coming in on Facebook. I think you answered this, but just in case, are Maka and Nana allowed to participate in the ceremony on the second kuopola?
Yes, second one. Everybody. Hmm.
Everybody. And then
Everybody participated because, as I was saying, this is when the information is disseminated. Whatever it was that the Ali'i Nui and the Kahuna Nui saw in the sky, then becomes the information that is disseminated on the second kuopola. So everybody participated in it. Not everybody was on the heiau, I should say. Not everybody was on the heiau, but everybody was around to hear what the information was. Only the ali'i and only the kahuna and the lower kahuna and the lower ali'i were allowed on, and then maybe not all the lower status ones, like they got the middle guys, those guys can, and then so I'm sure there was a hierarchy of who could be on and who could be on the outside and that kind of thing.
okay, and then thank you for answering that. This is from Leslie Noilani Wang on Facebook. Sorry, I don't have my glasses. I think this was relating to when you're talking about the 4 days of rest. They're asking, is that why those 4 days turned into Aloha Week? I don't know if you're gonna.
Oh, I'm gonna say no.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah. No correlation whatsoever. But maybe the original folks who did create Aloha Week maybe thought about, well, I think the motivator was the fact that October was the lowest tourism, where the lowest tourist numbers were, and
What
so
I
that's
saw in my
one.
research too. Yeah,
Yeah, that
Aloha
was.
Week is a filler for tourism, so they have activities, but it's
Yes.
not really anything.
Yeah, but I think over the years they may have actually added makahiki themed things to their actual their court thing and all of that sort of thing. But yeah, it wasn't the motivating factor for sure.
Antihoku Lani Padilla says Aloha Week was for the shoulder months for low tourism.
Yeah, there we
So
go. Yeah. See, our research is on, Katie. Yay.
yes.
Mahalo,
Um,
Goku.
yeah, thank you for that question. Everyone's just coming in with these questions. I'm into it. Paul, just to confirm, Lily Kala sent in Four Nanders Collections, Volume 4, Kalo Kamakau. It's online. In the chat, Stacy provided that it's on Ulukau.
Oh,
There's
yeah,
a
that's
free
right.
online copy because Four
Yes.
Nander, it's a
Yeah.
little up there or
And I
not
think it's out of
grabbable.
public. I
So,
don't think it's published. I
yeah.
think it's out of publish, out of print.
So online copy is the best. And then Alicia Kaha from Oahu or on Oahu asks, what are the ferns present on the Akua Lono?
Mm-hmm.
What is their kauna?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for asking that. Actually, there's several answers to that. So ferns are a kinolau of Kamapua'a, and Kamapua'a is a pig who was, verdant forestry is part of his thing, his environment, Kamapua'a's environment. So that's one reason. Another reason is they specifically looked for a particular fern called the pala, and the pala fern or palapalai, palai, palaa. There's all these different pala ferns that they would go and collect. That was intentional because the word pala also means to ripen or to come to fruition, to happen. So the word itself, they chose um, symbols, representatives of those words that they wanted to happen. They wanted fruit. They wanted a good harvest. They want rain to happen. They want a good productive year for the next year. So those are some of the reasons why you would see ferns. Yeah. So that's a short answer for that.
Mahalo, Auntie. I think I'll close out with this question. It's pretty general, but I think it's good to honor all the people that have come today. I'm probably Thaddeus on Facebook asks, is there any one source to learn Hawaiian?
Oh, the language you mean?
It's kind of open, so I think it might just be Hawaiian things or Hawaiian language, but
Oh,
a lot of
okay.
people have that question in general.
Right. Yeah, there are so many free resources that are online. Oh, and if you come to our website, we feature a lot of those. There's folders that we have that you can go to that point to where you can go for free language lessons. um yeah, it's good to, I mean, there's so many ways you can find kumu out there, find resources out there, find people who are out there. Yeah, University of Hawaii is one of them. There's workshops, there's online things. Yeah, but it's a really hard answer. It's a really hard question to answer. There's just so many that are out there. um yeah, available, so a lot
So
of it's
we
free.
Yeah, so Thaddeus, if you're still on with us, some of our Zoom members are sharing. Alicia says there's the Eho'o Pili Mai
That's a good one.
account on Instagram.
Yes.
Lily Kala says the University of Fuyat Manoa Hawaii Nui Akea has free language lessons every week. I believe that's through Kanau Kana.
Hmm.
Hawaiian at Home on Instagram. Malia said there's the weekly schedule for kanaokana.net, so you
Right.
can check that out.
There's Kumu
So
Kainoa who does stuff online. I mean, there's like so many Kumu out there. There's Choke. Yep. Thank you, Liko. Liko is adding his information to. In fact, a lot of the folks who are listening are resources that you can go to as well. Yeah, and props to
yeah,
all of them for doing such hard work and being available to the community for sure. Duolingo, that's a good one.
yeah. So I think if people have other questions, we encourage you to come to Kanai Night Together on Tuesdays for Q&A, to get that link, you just subscribe to Kanai and I Together. I'll re-share that in the chat for people who aren't part of our Hui yet or don't get our weekly emails. And then I'm gonna to Mahina. Mahina can close us out later on. Thank you, Auntie Calais, for your presentation.
Mahalo nui, everybody, for coming. And I hope we caught everybody who wanted to be here. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, just again, mahalo to everyone who's been listening in, chiming in, chatting in for co-creating this collective space of abundance, space of healing, space of resilience too, even through tech issues. So mahalo nui. I just want to personally say again, mahalo for your understanding and your graciousness. We apologize for those tech glitches, but we have so many people to thank. Like I had said earlier, our cross-posting partners, we want to shout out Kanao Kana, Hawaii Nui Akea, School of Hawaiian Knowledge, Ahawahine, Hawaii Pono E Coalition, Vai Collective, which I represent, and OEV TV. Special shout out to our Tita, Malia Nubria Oliveira, Mahalo Nui for all of your tech skills and your tech support. And we want to say mahalo piha to Aloha Care. They are a health organization here in Hawaii, and we recognize that Aloha Care is recommitting to Kanaka communities, which are founded, which they believe that whole health and wellness in Hawaii means we must be guided by community leaders and cultures, languages, and practices of this place. They want to express that they too, Aloha Care, is here to express radical aloha for one another through Mauliola. So again, we want to say mahalo to Aloha Care and to each of you for your support, for your donations. And it's really through your support and your donations that we can support awesome researchers, cultural practitioners like Dr. Nuhiva and Dr. Kamela Mela. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And mahalo to Kalei and to Katie for allowing Vai Collective to be a small part. I hope everyone has a great evening and see you at Kanai Night together. Ke aloha no.